Hey guys, it's Amy from Everyone Can Do Math. Today we're going to be doing our first set of practice problems. They're going to have to do with naming in geometry, and they're also going to have to do with some of the geometry vocabulary that we talked about before. But before we get into that, if it's your first time here, welcome, and if you're back, then thanks for coming back. If you could please like these videos and subscribe to this channel so that I could keep making these free tutoring videos for you. And that's all I have to say about that. Alright guys, so today I have made some practice problems for us. These are kind of like what you would see in your geometry class, and I think that they'll really help you to be able to do any of the other problems that you might come across. So let's go ahead and get started. And one more thing before we get started, if you're still unclear on geometry vocabulary, or if you aren't clear on the naming, I have 2 videos that deal with each of those topics. So go ahead and click those links and do those before you come to this, because I just think it'll be a little easier for you to get through these problems. Alright, let's get started. So you can see my little drawings. I've told you before that I'm not an artist, but hey, I think it works for what we're trying to do. Okay, so I've drawn 2 lines here, B, D, E, A, D, C, and they intersect, and this is what you would see in just a sample problem. So some of the questions, I've written 4 questions from these 2 lines, and we're just going to go through and we're going to answer these questions, and we're going to kind of explain it as we go in case you're confused. Okay, so number 1, we see that there's this BE and the line on top. Hopefully you remember what that is. The line on the top is the line segment. If you don't, go ahead and check out that last video. But the line segment BE, and the question is, what is another name for that? So the section between BE is this. We talked about that last time. So it's going to be that area right there in between the B and E. So what else could we call that? Well, I think you probably already know the answer to this, but the section between BE is also the section between EB. Now we know that because, like I said, that's this area right here. Okay, so we're just going, this line segment is saying that we're going from this point B right here to this point E over here. So we're talking about this. So the only other way to describe that would be to say, okay, let's just start off at the other point and go this way. It doesn't matter if we're starting off here and going this way, or if we're going here and we're going this way. It doesn't matter because it's still talking about the same area. So that would be the answer for that one. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to talk about here is a ray. You can see that because of the little line and the arrow above. And so this is talking about ray AC, and it wants to know what is another name for AC. So AC is talking about this point. And then remember, the rays have one endpoint and then they go on forever. So this is the endpoint. It chose A, and it's going to go, here's the C over here. So it's going to go this way, but it's going to go forever. So they called out these 2 points AC, and it's going to go on forever. So what else could we call it? And hopefully you remember this before, but because D is also on this line with them, we can just call that out. So for this problem here, AC, we want an equivalent. So we already know that the top is going to be a ray, the same way that this is a ray. And then we know that we're going from point A, and we're drawing that line through where C is. Well, we have to pass D to get there. So we could also call this AD. Now, with the ray, remember, you're always going to have the same endpoint. So as soon as you know that you want another name for the ray AC, you can just go ahead and, kind of how we did here, go ahead and write your little top line and then also write your A, because you already know that has to be the endpoint and you know that it has to be a ray. So the only thing that you're looking for at that point is another point along that line, and we found that right here with D. So that's how we could go ahead and fill that in. All right, and as we're going along, if there are ever any questions that you have about what I'm saying, or if you just need a little further clarification, or if it reminds you of something else that you're hoping to get more understanding on, just go ahead and leave that in the comments, and I can try and get those answered as soon as possible. Okay, so the third question here, we have our line BE. We can tell that it's a line because, again, at the top we have those two arrows, so we want an equivalent. So just kind of how we did up above, we can go ahead and already fill out that top part, because we know if we want the equivalent of a line, it's going to have to be a line. A line is equal to a line. So go ahead and do that. And now I just like to actually go to the diagram and find out what it is that they're talking about, because I think it makes it a little easier to find that equivalent. So here is B and here's E. So it's talking about this line right here. So we want this, and it's going to go on forever because those two arrows, those two caps that we talked about before. So we've already called it line B and E, so those points have already been used, but we can also call it any other two letters on that line. So here we see that there's also a D, so we can pick that and call it BD. And there's so many more options for this. If we wanted to pick a different name, then maybe we could say, okay, we have our BE taken, we have our BE taken, we have our BD taken. We could also call it D and E, because it's still going to go forever and forever. So DE is also equivalent. And let me go ahead and clean up some of these lines so you can see the letters. All right. So you can see how B and D, like I said, they're going to go on forever. They're a line. So BD is on the same line as DE, which is on the same line as BE. And then we could keep going. We could also say that this is going to be EB, because it's still the same line. So, I mean, we could keep going and going, but any 2 points on this line, as long as it's a line and it's going to go on forever, they're going to be equivalent, and they would be correct answers as well. All right, so now for number 4, we're asking for rays with the endpoint D. So we want to name all of the rays with the endpoint D. In order to do that, we start with our top symbol always. So the top symbol is going to be a line, a ray, and so you have this little line here, and then you have the arrow. Now, if the endpoint is D, then D is the first letter we're going to write, because we know that that's the point. So for all of our answers, we're going to have this D and we're going to have this arrow. So the first one I'm just looking at is DC, and that's going to be from here to here. All right. So then that makes me think of the next one, the opposite ray. Gonna go ahead and draw this again, and I see DA. So we're gonna write DA. And notice here that we mentioned this before, but even though DA is going in an opposite direction, we're always gonna have our arrow pointing to the right, and we're always gonna have the point first, regardless of the direction of the ray. So we have DC, we have DA, we have DB, and we have DE. Those are all rays with the endpoint D. All right. For the last one, I drew another diagram, and for this one, it's supposed to be a cube. Yeah, this is what I came up with. Okay, so for this one, we want to know what is collinear with x and w. So remember the collinear, we're going to think of that costar, which basically means that these points are on the same line. So here's our x right here, here's our w right here, and so this is the line we're talking about, and bam, we hit it. Right there was that z. So point z is on the same line as the x and the w. All right. Oh boy. Okay. So next we want to say answer number 6, and that is what is also going to be coplanar with the points S. So here's S over here, T, here's T over here, and U. And we see that we're talking about this plane right here. And bam, we hit it as we're figuring out what we're talking about. And we see that it's point V. And that's another reason I really like to figure out what they're talking about. Like, highlight it, go over it with your pencil, because look, we're literally like running into the answers. So, and we also see point Y. We also ran into that, so that could have also been an answer. Okay, and the last thing, we want the intersection of QX and WZ. So where's our QX? So QX is right here. And it's going this way. And then W, where's W? Here's W, and here's Z. So it's going this way. And we see that they intersect right here. And that is going to be on point X. So that's the answer. All right, so that is our first sample problem exercises. Hopefully this made sense to you. If you have any questions, I really think that they'll be answered in the previous 2 videos, so go ahead and check those out. And until then, enjoy doing math. We'll be back soon. Bye.